So the Justice Department has released a redacted Mar-a-Lago search warrant affidavit, and unfortunately the best source of information I can find right now seems to be a CNN politics page, so I'll read that so you don't have to. DOJ legal brief references risk to witnesses if affidavit redactions aren't made. So the first thing that they did was release that they have to protect their sources to not chill the effect of people coming forward and with further investigations. But it has been released. The brief said its details would provide a roadmap to the investigation, and that revealing this information could thus adversely impact the government's pursuit of relevant evidence. So they want to make sure they don't release the roadmap of what they're actually looking for, but we should still be able to find that anyway. And the first thing, filed under seal, affidavit in support of an application under Rule 41 for a warrant to search and seize. So here's where we find the heart of the matter here. And it looks like this began as a result of a referral from the United States National Archives and Record Administration. So this is based on the former archivist who's now retired that said he was upset about the bag or box of documents that he saw, or he perceived to be documents, being carried onto a Marine helicopter as the Trumps were leaving office. So that is where all this started. And they received records back in the 15 boxes that it looks like. So they had a problem with the contents of the 15 boxes that were returned. Classified markings and records were removed from the White House or any other locations for the storage of classified materials. And it's important to stop right here and say that classified materials, so they have a problem with the idea that classified materials were put off premises from secure, quote-unquote, secure storage. So the first thing that you got to remember with this is that when Donald Trump was leaving office, he specifically took documents related to the Russiagate hoax and declassified them. There is no doubt that the President of the United States is the ultimate authority of what's confidential, what's classified, what's top secret, and therefore he can declassify anything he wants. The President could go declassify records about, alien investigations, anything. He could take something that he wants and decide that it's, first off, he has a decision about its private materials, and then he has a decision about declassifying any documents he likes. He's the ultimate authority in it. And the fact that they got these materials that were marked like they're supposed to know what's currently classified or declassified, with the idea that the president can declassify stuff, but they're not going to pull off those tags and markings, the classification markings, and then they come and take these boxes and say, well, the archivist said that these are classified documents. Well, how would you know? How would the FBI know? It's not their job to go through documents and decide what's classified, what's not. That's Donald Trump's prerogative to determine. He doesn't have to tell them, this is classified any longer, this isn't classified. He just takes it, says, this is all declassified. Simple. To the point. And now they're trying to say that classified documents are put in an unprotected location. They missed the point completely. They're basically trying to remove the president's authority to declassify documents. They're making a judgment on the president's ability to declassify documents. Absolutely absurd. Here we got our first major redactions. The FBI investigation has established that documents bearing classification markings, which appear to contain national defense information. Did they determine that? Did the archivist determine that? Were among the materials contained in the 15 boxes and were stored at the premises in an unauthorized location. They didn't authorize it, y'all. The FBI did not get a call and say, hey, is this okay here? What security procedures do we need to have in place for these declassified documents that the president declassified? Why don't you tell us? Whole bunch of redaction here. They probably had an archivist or somebody said, no, these are still marked classified. Further, there is probable cause to believe that additional documents that can contain classified NDI or that are presidential records subject to record retention requirements. Presidential records retention requirements. You mean something that he again determines if it's personal or presidential records and he was working with the National Archives, currently remain at the premises. There is also probable cause to believe that all evidence of obstruction will be found at the premises. Evidence of obstruction. So now they have some kind of idea that they're going to probably do something with January 6th with documents and say that he obstructed something, delayed the information from reaching. I don't even know what that is. I am a special agent with the FBI assigned to the Washington field office. Blah, blah, blah. Redacted. During this time, I have received training at the FBI. Blah, blah, blah. Based on my experience and training, I am familiar with efforts used to unlawfully collect, retain, and disseminate sensitive government information, including classified NDI. So, they basically just completely ignore the president's ability to do any of that. He's not allowed to take anything. It's got to be contraband. It's got to be fruits of a crime. He's in illegal possession of it. Absolutely ridiculous. Source of evidence. The facts set forth in this affidavit are based on my personal knowledge obtained during my participation in this investigation, and information obtained from other FBI and U.S. government personnel. Because this affidavit is submitted for the limited purpose of establishing probable cause in support of the application for a search warrant, it does not set forth each and every fact that I or others have learned during the course of this investigation. So in other words, I know more, but I'm not going to put it here. A common tactic from the FBI, because they don't record interviews and interrogations. They don't have to. They don't have to write a statement right away. They can just, whatever they remember a few days later, they're authorized to do that. So then here's their statutory with the laws that were previously listed, 18 U.S.C., the things that they are essentially saying that he violated. Classified, blah, blah, blah. Authorized disclosure could reasonably result in damage to national security. Information be classified as confidential and must be properly safeguarded. So there again, they're ignoring, and they're saying that whatever he declassified should still be confidential. They disagree with his ability to do that, and that's somehow a crime. Confidential, secret, top secret markings. Sensitive, compartmented information means classified information concerning or derived from intelligence sources, methods, or analytical process which is required to be handled within formal access control systems. Wow. Special Intelligence, SI. And it's notoriously, it's widely known that our government classifies everything at ridiculously high levels. Somebody could come forward and say they were an informant in the January 6th, and that could be like determined to be a national secret because it's like, well, this person's needs to be protected so that their life's not in danger from anybody that was involved in that criminal enterprise. So, we're going to protect this at the highest levels, and they put a stamp on it, and they overemphasize the risk of things and information getting out as sources and methods that they need to protect. And that's a common known thing. Foreign intelligence. Oh, look at this. You got all kinds of stuff in here about, FISA. Classified information of any designation may be shared only with persons determined by an appropriate United States government official to be eligible for access and who possess a need to know. So anything that went to the president, obviously he needed to know if it got to the point where the president was given that information. And, on his last day when he's leaving office and Joe Biden is sworn in, he immediately has no knowledge or referral of any of those records, anything like that. In the past, a president has been kept their access Just like a lot of former intelligence officials, they keep their access in case they're going to be brought in to say, hey, how did you deal with this? You know about this information. Here's the updated intel on this. We need to talk to you about what you did in that case. And it's clear that the Biden administration did not want Trump to retain any of that, because the first thing they did when they got in office was to say, well, let's try to remove all of that. This is not anything but attacking someone out of the ordinary for their access that they had, for their right to declassify stuff. This is absurd. Let's look farther up at some of the things. The FBI found 184 classified documents from 15 Mar-a-Lago boxes. Federal investigators wrote there were 184 unique documents bearing classification markings, including 67 documents marked as confidential, 92 docs marked as secret, and 25 docs marked as top secret. Amazing. So if Trump had planned to take all of the Russiagate information, then he would have already have read it, known that it was relevant, probably wanted to make sure that he had access to it. He would have said, I'm going to declassify all this so that the story gets out, and I'm going to make sure that I take all this stuff, not taking every single copy, mind you, but taking it with him because it's the trail of who did what during Russiagate. Something that if all that stuff disappears, there could be no investigation of who was the root cause of it. Then to have those same agents that were involved in that those documents were about, come and search Mar-a-Lago, 30 agents, tearing apart not only his office, the basement archive area that he had, but all of his house, going through his wife's clothes, shows that they were looking for every stitch of everything. And the fact that they are the same agents that were, responsible for the Russiagate hoax were the ones that actually went and searched and took those documents after Trump specifically declassified that stuff to keep it out of, from being hidden and destroyed and all that other stuff, shows that this was a target to get their hands on all of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if all the other stuff referring to obstruction is going to go directly to the January 6th committee. The FBI opened a criminal investigation after the National Archives sent a referral on February 9th. To determine, in the redacted search warrant that was released on Friday, the FBI special agent spelled four main goals of the criminal investigation: to determine how the documents with classified markings and records were removed from the White House or any other authorized location for the storage of classified materials and came to be stored at Mar-a-Lago. To determine how the documents got to Mar-a-Lago. Simple. Donald Trump said, declassified, pack these up. They're coming with me. There, I answered your question. To determine whether the storage locations at Mar-a-Lago were authorized locations for the storage of classified information. No, they weren't authorized locations for the storage of classified information. They were authorized locations for the storage of declassified information. Question 2 answered. 3, to determine whether any additional classified documents or records may have been stored in an unauthorized location at Mar-a-Lago or another unknown location, and whether they remain at any such location. So, did you take anything that was classified when you had the ability to declassify stuff and take a whole bunch of documents with you? Did you take anything classified, though? You could have declassified it and taken it with you, but did you take any declassified or still classified documents? Ridiculous. To identify any persons who may have removed or retained classified information without authorization and or in an unauthorized space. Identify any person. So is this going after some of, the people that worked for Trump that may have taken the documents? Did they not handle them properly with declassifying them? Whew. Sure seems like a witch hunt to me. I think it's very clear that our Justice Department, our FBI, is acting in a partisan manner. They're ignoring the fact that Trump had access to all this, was able to read all of this, was able to declassify it, able to take it with him. So it's all about an unauthorized location and people not being able to see classified information. But let's read this one. There could be evidence of obstruction at Mar-a-Lago, according to FBI affidavit. You had millions of documents and stuff taken by prior administrations, never turned over. They worked out things with the archives whenever there was a question about what to go to the archives. And in this case, it's just, I firmly believe they probably waited with the idea of like, let's let all these documents and stuff get stored there, and let's let the archivist make a little, hubbub about what needs to be sent back. Some of that will have these markings on it that say it's top secret, confidential. And then when we get that, we see those markings on there, then we can raise an issue like, oh, hey, what else is there with these markings? Because that sounds dangerous to me. We need to get a grand jury together and let them know that there's all these documents marked with that. Did they tell them that the president has a right to declassify that information? Why would someone take a whole bunch of boxes with all these markings on it as they're leaving the presidency and just say, well, I'm just going to take all these top secret documents. I have no right to take them. I'm going to go store them at, my house that's, actually guarded by the Secret Service. I'd say it's probably pretty safe, maybe even more so than some of these archivist locations. But hey, let's take all these documents so I get in trouble for taking all these boxes of documents. I'm sure that's what went through his mind, and I'm sure that the FBI probably capitalized on the idea that the grand jury that they spoke to probably had no idea about that. I think most Americans probably don't have any idea about who's the highest level, who's the one that determines. It's not the Pentagon, not the military or anything like that. It's not the intelligence community. It's the head of all those, which is the president. Anyway, if there's anything more that comes out from this, I'll be sure to make another video, but that's the gist of it. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure this is going to be stuff that's going to be somehow turned over to the January 6th committee, or the January 6th committee is going to try to get their hands on and drag this out. This is all to inflame right before, a midterm election, and it's all an attempt to get Donald Trump not to be able to run for president in 2024, and we got to not let that happen. We have to make it clear that it's the constitutional right of the president. He's met all the requirements. He can run for president. I'm sure they're still going to try to tie him up in court and everything else with all of this. Run his name through the mud. And he's the only one. He has it in his plan to fire over 50,000 what's known as Schedule F employees in the United States government, which are the people that are in policy positions in the government, unelected people that are able to make policies. If you think about it, if you're in the EPA or something along those lines and you make rules for people, if they spill oil in the local water supply, that you can fine them $50,000 for, every instance that happens, they're essentially making laws. Their rules are essentially making laws that affect people. And they make policy decisions about like, well, I think climate change is really bad, and so we need to move away from fossil fuels, so we need to punish this and punish that and punish this and attack, these industries. And that's something that's more of what, the president, when he comes into office, he can't manage all those little things, so he has to appoint people into those positions. But then there's underlings underneath of that are in policy positions that make little changes here and there, or even big changes to rules. These people are the ones that are most dangerous to our republic because they're unchecked, and they need to have some kind of checks and balances on them. And President Trump has it in his policies and stuff that he intends to fire those 50,000 people and restructure a lot of these departments. And that's what needs to happen. It's quite simple. That these things are out of hand. You're talking about the FBI, who doesn't record interviews and interrogations. You go to court with them later, and they have a very high rate of winning, too high to be, completely fair. There's no way an agency can operate unchecked like this without becoming corrupt. One agent doing the wrong thing can have serious consequences. Who's watching out for them? Where's the checks and balances? Is it another case of a law enforcement agency We've investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. Something needs to change there. You should be investigating yourself to see if you did something wrong, because obviously you could have done it without thinking that it was wrong, and you could be wrong. And to investigate yourself and say, well, no, that was okay. Ridiculous. Checks and balances were built into our Constitution. Our government has grown so large that there needs to be more checks and balances in there, because some of these things couldn't have been anticipated to get so out of hand. Do you think the Founding Fathers were thinking about an EPA? An ATF? No. So we need to change with the times and create a system to put all these things in check, to make them fair, to keep them from being partisan.